Welcome back to DSP. A new little setup we have here.
Yeah.
New microphones. Standing mics. We don't have the arms hanging over the top.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess we'll assess at the end of the show.
We'll see. We'll see how if we're in a groove or not. Thank you for joining us here on DSP, along with Derek Hutchinson, Ken Haddad. I'm Hobie Artigue, and guys, it seems like the record seems to repeat every single weekend with this Detroit Tigers team. Another series win. This time, they topped the team that was at the top of the National League coming into the weekend, taking 2 of 3 from the Cubs. We went into this. We were talking coming into this. This team split with the White Sox, the lesser of the 2 teams this year from Chicago. So you're thinking, okay, what's going to happen with this series with the Cubs coming to town? And then they just dominated the 2 games that they won.
Yeah, I wasn't feeling that great coming into this series just because, like you said, you split with the White Sox. They won that series in Kansas City, but they got shut out in the scoreboard start, and they only scored 1 run in the other win. So it was like it didn't feel like they were playing their best baseball, but they still found a way to come home and take 2 of 3 from a team that definitely could be in the World Series this year.
Absolutely.
Awesome atmosphere in the city, too. What was it, like the first meeting of 2 40-win teams since like 2005, this early in the season?
Ooh, that's
so you just get this amazing atmosphere. Feels like the playoffs, like sold out seats. Even some people were even in the premium seats.
I was going to say,
how about that?
There were still some empty seats there.
Not that you were counting or anything.
Don't worry. I mean, beautiful weather. It was just awesome. You know, they lost that first game, so I was kind of like, are we getting into a little bit of like a slumpy area here for the season? Because we had talked about like how long can this peak really go, right? Yeah. We talked about that last week. But then they showed up for the rest of the weekend and took it. So it was. I mean,
it was 3
amazing.
sellouts. People showed up in Detroit to go see this.
Yeah.
I mean, not only that, but not only do you have the Tigers playing well, but it's a traditional name in the Cubs. So I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand of why there would be 3 straight sellouts. But also this series. I mean, this could have been a World Series preview in a lot of ways. We've talked so highly of the Tigers all season long, and it's like, well, can they do this? Can they do this? I think this was just another feather in their cap. But do you think, like, from a national perspective, does this almost validate them as being a potential World Series contender?
Yeah, I feel like people are starting to notice now because you look at like ESPN articles or national articles, and the Tigers are starting to pop up in those like top 5s of the power rankings where they belonged all year, honestly. But the Cubs are sort of a media darling because, like you said, they're a big market team. Yeah. When they're good, it's good for baseball. And the Tigers, didn't even play their best series and still took 2 of 3. So the Tigers are sort of forcing everybody to notice them.
They have to be on the radar now, right? Like, I mean, that was such a big moment, big platform.
But then also they beat the Yankees earlier this year in a series, and if that didn't do it, maybe it takes this.
What's
it going to take? The Dodgers coming back up?
Well, you start picking up key wins, like as you get later into the season, I think people start paying attention. When you have those big wins like early on, or even big losses, like people don't really pay that close attention.
Yeah.
But now you're starting to get into like the summer. Things are starting to feel more real. Could you imagine if the Tigers and Cubs were in the World Series? I think the entire world would explode.
Be still my beating heart. I mean, the Tigers, like you said, they just took a series from the Cubs. They've taken a series from the Yankees. They've taken a series from the Padres, the Giants. Like, there's not that much more that they can do that they haven't already to sort of validate them, right? Like, sure, the Mets, we'll get the Mets at some point, but like, does beating the Mets give you more validity than beating the Cubs? It's kind of splitting hairs at that point. Like, we're almost 80 games into this season, and the Tigers are by far the best team in their division and 2 games ahead of the Yankees for best team in the AL. So if you're not talking about it, then you're sort of doing the Tigers a disservice.
At this point, getting close, because we were just talking a few weeks ago about, now we're about like at the 1/3 chunk being done. As we inch closer to the halfway point, do you think the Tigers, once we reach halfway at 81, it's going to be, all right, this is the team to beat in the American League?
I think it's hard to say they will be
Or they're already there.
I'm confident that they will be one of 2. Because the Tigers and the Yankees are both sort of several games ahead of the pack in the American League. And I do think it's a very good Yankees team. So really all that matters is getting one of those 2 top spots because that's the bye, right?
Yep.
And the Tigers are going to be in that by the halfway point.
Do you feel confident if the Tigers and Yankees end up in the ALCS that the Tigers would have a shot in a 7-game series?
The Tigers always shove the Yankees into a locker in the playoffs.
They do appear to do that, yeah.
Yeah, the Yankees don't bother me.
Shout out to Kyle Farnsworth.
I think the Yankees, Aaron Judge is having arguably like the best season for a right-handed hitter ever. So that's a big consideration. If the Yankees get healthy at the pitching staff, they're going to be really tough. But there's no reason to believe that the Tigers couldn't compete with them in a 7-game series.
Looking at game one, I mean, Tarek Skubal came out against the Cubs. He set the tone. The offense showed up for him. He gave up the run. They got one right back, and then they went off to that 3-1 win. His story explains itself. Game one was kind of the epitome of what he's done all season long. But to see Jack Flaherty perform the way he did on Sunday to set the tone in that win. I mean, we'll get to the bullpen and the bullpen starts and the bullpen days. But what do you think of Flaherty? And do the Tigers need him to perform at that level to be that consistent, dominant team for the rest of the year?
They don't need him to be because he wasn't earlier in the year, but it takes him to another level. Because, I mean, if you remember early in the year, it was like Skubal, Mize was the big story. Yeah. Reese Olson was pitching really well. And Jackson Jobe, and Flaherty were kind of the weak links early in the season. Now he's pitching like the number 2, which is what he was for the Tigers all last year. And that's great to see because Mize and Olson hurt. Mize is stumbling a little bit. So, yes, Jack Flaherty getting things together is a game changer.
It's almost like Skubal in the rotation.
It honestly is.
That's really what it is right now.
Yeah, he's like the lead singer of a pitching band.
He kind of is.
Yeah.
How about this SGL guy coming up? Like, what am I supposed to think about him?
Yeah, Sawyer Gipson-Long.
Please tell me.
He literally, all the excitement from him comes from 20 innings back in 2023. He made 4 or 5 inning starts, and he was like electric. He did the typical Tigers thing where he came up, his minor league numbers were okay, and then he just looked amazing. So I'm excited about him, but I think that we need to see a few more starts because, he missed basically 2 full years.
He went 600 days without playing in a major league game?
Yeah, so from that's one crazy. Start, I mean, there were some good things. He can get swing and miss in the zone on his fastball, which is that's a huge, huge feather in the cap of any pitcher. But beyond that, we just got to see what he can do with the secondary stuff.
Looking at the pitching staff, the last year, this team thrived on pitching chaos. That was the bread and butter going into the playoffs. Fans loved it. Teams didn't know what to expect whenever the Tigers would throw somebody out there. The last 2 games, though, that has not worked in their favor, whether it was against the White Sox or against the Cubs. Does that aspect have any cause for concern for you right now, especially being out 2 starters right now with no Reese Olson and Jackson Jobe still working his way back?
Yeah, I think the concern for me mostly centers around Tyler Holton, oddly enough. He was sort of the guy and Bo Brisky. Those were the 2 guys that sort of tied pitching chaos all together because they could go multiple innings. They could get both-handed players out. And this year, neither of them have been nearly as consistent. Most of the good pitchers in the Tigers bullpen are mostly 1 inning, maybe 4 or 5 outs guys. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes it a lot tougher to piece together a ball game, right? So Brant Herter is pitching really well, but I do think the Tigers are less built this year with Brisky and Holton struggling to maintain pitching chaos. Luckily, they have a lot of starting pitcher depth. Beyond the first 5 guys that they have in the rotation, they've got Cater Montero, they've got Sawyer Gipson-Long, Jackson Jobe, and Reese Olson hopefully will be back at some point. So they shouldn't have to rely on pitching chaos too much.
If only Kenta Maeda was still around.
Yeah. Ooh, tough loss
Do you
there.
feel like the Tigers are going to have to make a move to bolster the bullpen at the deadline?
I think they'll be in the market. I don't think they'll make a move. I think they'll get a bat. I really do think they'll get a right-handed bat, maybe a primary third baseman. We'll see how Javi Baez performs from now until then because he's slowed down a little bit. But I think that the priority should be to get a bat.
I love that whenever you bring up trade or free agent talk, it always goes back to third base from the offseason to now. We're still talking about that. But if there was one area, I don't even know if it's an area of concern, but it's crazy that might be just the one area that is the question for this team right now.
It's not like it's been a huge hole because the Tigers and AJ Hinch have been able to fill it with multiple bodies. Mm-hmm. But if you wanted a little bit more consistency at a right-handed spot, that's where you would go.
Also, All-Star voting from the fan perspective opened up last week. Since we did the show, this team, I mean, it's almost anybody's night on any given night for this Tigers team. If you had to put a number on it, how many All-Stars do you think the Tigers are in store for in 2025?
I think the Tigers are going to get at least 3. I could see them getting as many as 7. They've got some gap guys.
Have you been voting a lot?
I have not yet been voting. No, since it opened, I've been a little busy. But I think the Tigers, Gleyber Torres is like a slam dunk. Second base is pretty weak. I think he'll be a starter. I think Torkelson will get in there. He's a high-profile guy. He's leading first base and home runs by almost double.
What a story.
Yeah, great story. I think Riley Green sneaks in, and then obviously, like, the only question about Skubal is he the starter or is he in there? And I think he'll probably be
Who else
the
in the
starter.
American League could give him a run?
Yeah,
Right? That's the question.
I've got 4. I've got Chris Bubich from the Royals, Garrett Crochet from the Red Sox, and then Wayne State star Hunter Brown from the Astros. I think that's kind of a big 4 there. And if you just purely went off of like ERA, it would be Bubich, but Tarek Skubal is just so much more dominant in every other category. There's honestly not much justification going anywhere else.
And also, if you want to talk like the buzz name in baseball when it comes to pitching, it might be him. Like
Skubal?
Yeah, because
for sure.
we talked about this team not getting the praise of the national media. I mean, I was watching ESPN the other night, and they did an entire segment on just his start and just how phenomenal it was and the numbers behind it. So I think he's definitely getting the credit, and I think we could see him start.
The numbers are great, but also just passes the eye test with flying colors, right? Like he'll just like scream in your face after he strikes you out. So it's good TV.
Is it a scream or a roar?
It's both. Yeah.
Ken, how many you got? Everybody?
You just send everybody. Yeah.
The entire American League?
Send the entire. Yeah, send everybody. I was wondering, is anybody going to be voting for Javi Baez for the All-Star game? Maybe
Detroit
as an
will be.
outfielder, because he's been one of the better outfielders in baseball.
These last few weeks have hurt him for sure. I mean, his numbers he was hitting like 314, and he went on a stretch where he hit a bunch of homers, but the last few weeks have definitely hurt him. He's been a little cold. Defense is still great. I don't see him making the team. I will say Zach McKinstry, it sounds crazy, and I really don't think he has a chance, but he's 3rd in the league in WAR among third basemen and 8 in outfield. So if that tells you anything, he has a case for 2 different positions, and he's kind of been one of the rocks that ties it all together.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
They have had so many glue guys on this team. It's just incredible.
It's all glue. The whole team is glue, man.
Yeah, Dylan Dingler's another one. But they only take 2 catchers, so I really think he'd be number 3. So I don't think he makes it, but he deserves some consideration.
An impressive start to the season. That's said every single week for these Tigers. Baltimore coming up next, and that's a team that they swept earlier in this year. Much more of this conversation on Local 4 Plus and clickondetroit.com. Back on DSP, time to discuss the Lions because the offseason is officially here for this team with OTAs wrapping up. So many storylines in OTAs, whether it would be some of the newer guys in new numbers. I mean, Jamison Williams stepping up, Jahmyr Gibbs wearing number 0, but a lot of it too was the guys who were not participating because there was a long list of guys who didn't participate, including Amon-Ra St. Brown. He said he had a knee issue, got it quote-unquote cleaned up with surgery in the offseason, but should be ready to go for training camp.
Don't like that.
Classic thing that you hear in the offseason that just like kind of, it always pops up. Sometimes player would just be like, yeah, I just had knee surgery.
By
it wasn't a big deal. Like, it was just totally like minor. I'll be fine. And then like next thing you know, they're on the PUP list.
Yeah. As far as you know, do wide receivers need to like cut on their knee or anything? Okay.
No,
great.
not at all.
So you have some concern then.
Did you? The way that the Lions' injury luck has gone the last couple of years, every little thing, he could say he had a hangnail, and I'd be like, great. 4 to 6.
He does. He has 2.
He has played through a lot, though, and if anybody can tough it out, it probably
I'm not actually concerned, but like anytime you hear
knee
surprise,
surgery,
I had surgery, you're just like, oh, come on.
He has played through a lot, so we'll be talking about his retirement in 2 years.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my. Here was Amon-Ra St. Brown earlier last week talking about his relationship with new offensive coordinator John Morton, because so many changes. A lot of the players are back, but a lot of behind-the-scenes guys or guys making the calls will be new. But here's what he had to say about his new OC when we chatted with him. Subtle changes in the offense, but going through the classroom work of OTA, seeing what you see on the field, how different is it compared to what you guys had under Ben?
Yeah, a lot of it's the same. You like to keep the same things that you've done well the past 2-3 years. You'd like to keep those kind of similar. Obviously, each coach has their own wrinkles and their own little twist to what they do and what they like. Obviously, we got some different terminology, some different formations, but a lot of the the nucleus, I would say, of the offense is still there. But then again, we still got different stuff too. Change stuff up. Johnny Moe had a way of doing things where he was from that worked for him, and he feels like we got guys on this team that can make that work too. If not, maybe switch some things up, make it look even better. So he's been awesome. He's been very receptive. We've been receptive of him, and just be able to have a new face, have something, new voice, new way of teaching. It's good for us. I think we've been so accustomed to a certain thing for so long that you kind of get used to it, and then when something new happens, you're like, oh, it kind of wakes you up and gets you ready. So I think that he's kind of done that for our offense. Definitely woken me up, just having to learn new plays, new formations, because I was so used to the same plays. I didn't have to look at the play. I already knew what I had to do without even looking. So now I actually got to study up some plays, because I can't be messing up out there. That's the last thing I want to do. So it's good, though. I think it's good for the offense. It's good for the guys. Coaches, too, they got to be on their toes because it's different formations. So we all got to lock in, but I think it's going to help us in the long run.
All right, Amon-Ra St. Brown saying right there that maybe it's a good thing that they change things up to keep everybody on their toes. Looking at what the Broncos did last year, that's where John Morton was. He was the passing game coordinator, working with a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix. Bo Nix had 3,700 passing yards, almost 30 touchdowns, and that's a rookie. Now he has a great offense with a solid quarterback in Jared Goff, multiple weapons. Where do you put what the Lions could be on offense this year? I mean, they established new heights over the last 2 seasons with Ben Johnson.
I'm so uncertain, honestly, Ben Johnson was such a great creative play caller. So removing him is one variable. All the changes on the offensive line is another variable. Yes, the skill pieces are still in place, but it's just, I don't know. I really don't know what to expect. The Frank Ragnow news shook me more than I expected it to. It felt like he really tied everything together. But hearing Amon-Ra speak, he's sort of like a steadying force, to me, even as he is on the field. So do I think the Lions are going to fall apart offensively? No, but they were such an outlier elite last year that I just don't know if I can expect that same production.
I thought Amon-Ra's comments were very honest, and you don't really get that sort of, I feel like he just let us in a little bit there.
Yeah.
And for him to say we were maybe, what I got from that was maybe we were a little too comfortable. Yeah. And we needed a little bit of a shakeup. I mean, that's very telling to me. I'm not exactly sure how that translated onto the field last year because the offense was obviously great. But for a player of his caliber to come out and say that is really interesting. Just hearing him say that gives me hope that there will be some good continuity from coordinator to coordinator. I don't anticipate seeing a huge offensive overhaul. I think you're going to see more so, tweaks. And at the end of the day, I mean, the trick plays, the gambling, all that stuff, that's Dan Campbell. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's the philosophy he wants his coaches to build strategy with. It's not just Ben Johnson was working on a whim
in a lab and just concocting who.
So I think the main tenets of that offense will still be there, and you'll see some different experimentation. But I just love that they're embracing the change in that way. It's you don't often.
It's refreshing to hear that because you could take the way of, well, we have a new coach, but it's still all about us. It's still this, that, and the other. No, that's them wanting to embrace that change. And I mean, Dan Skipper said the same thing. It's change. Change is not good or bad, is what he said. It's just change, and you have to embrace it and go for it.
Especially in the NFL. I mean, change is inevitable.
Yeah. Every year, every team.
Your
no
teammates,
team is the
your
same.
coaches,
no team is ever the same.
Never.
Hopefully, we will see something different for this Lions defense when it comes to the injuries coming up this season. So many injuries last year from top to bottom, including a guy who got hurt in the playoff game, and that was Amik Robertson. He said he had to work his way back. He should be a full go for training camp. But here's what he had to say about that defense in 2025 as they get back on their feet, hopefully much healthier coming up this year.
I like it, though. I like it because, it keeps everyone on edge.
How much do you think the experience you have in the secondary will allow you guys to do a little bit more from a pressure standpoint, maybe take a little bit more risks, as far as being able to generate pressure and leave some of the secondary guys on the island because they are so good?
We know what kind of defense we want to be. We know what kind of defense we are. I don't want to say too much about the scheme or whatever, but when you got guys that can play man, it helps the D-line. And when you got guys that can rush, it helps the secondary, So it's always a blessing to be able to have a lot of guys that, football, not only just man guys, but football players that can, just help the defense in different ways.
And Amik said he didn't want to discredit, because somebody asked him, how much better do you think the defense will be this year with being healthier? And he said, I don't want to say anything about that because I don't want to discredit what some of the guys did who just came in unexpectedly and performed at a high level.
Including him.
Including him, absolutely. But looking from our perspective, if this defense is fully healthy, when you have the safety tandem that they do, when you have a pass rusher like Aiden Hutchinson, whenever you have a great slot corner like Amik Robertson, older corners now with Terrion Arnold getting another year of experience under his belt, where do you put the ceiling for the defense in 2025?
I think the ceiling is probably higher than it was last year with everybody healthy. The biggest questions to me is just what percentage of production can we expect from those guys who were injured last year? Like, is Aiden Hutchinson just back as the best pass rusher in the league? When Aleem McNeil returns, is he just Aleem McNeil again, right? So the pieces are all there, and I think that, Brad Holmes did a nice job supplementing what they have and replacing the guys they lost, but if Aiden and Aleem aren't at 100% at some point in this season, I don't think we can expect the defense to be as good this year as it was when they were all healthy last year.
That's very true. I mean, they have to be better than they were last year, just based on sheer personnel, right? They have to be better. I'm still going into the season a little iffy on the pass rush, and that's such a key area for that team. With Aiden on the other side of that line, and they haven't really done a whole lot to address it. It's kind of been a hot topic all offseason. Brad Holmes thinks we're overreacting all the time when we talk about this, but I just don't see, especially without Aleem in the middle there, where they're getting all this pass rush outside of Hutch. And I mean, Amik just said it. That pass rush helps the secondary so much,
tremendously.
And if you don't have it, now you're putting a lot of pressure on that secondary again, and now you kind of have the same issues that you had last year. So,
and I think a big question, you both brought up Aleem McNeil. The question is, will he be back? I mean, an ACL injury for anybody to come back from, it's a grueling process to return, let alone a defensive tackle where brute force is the name of your game. And
Is there
that's going to be
sense,
interesting to see when he comes back.
Is there a sense being around the team of what they're expecting from him in terms of
there has not. There
Okay.
has not. I know Dan Campbell said he was talking about Malcolm Rodriguez and said November is looking like when he would make the comeback. So if you're going off of similar timelines, I mean, that could be a good chunk of the season that they are playing. It's pure speculation, but I mean, usually an ACL takes a year to recover from.
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's a long.
And Aleem's a big guy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I will say the good part is that they're not working in a whole lot of new faces.
No.
DJ Reed, I think, is probably the biggest.
And then probably Tyleek Williams, a rookie. I mean, that's
Tyleek, yeah.
probably why you drafted him, because if you don't know when Aleem McNeil is coming back, you have somebody who can step in there. But still, that's a rookie getting used to the game and did not participate really in OTAs. Kind of watched off to the side from what we could tell.
Yeah.
Whenever we were out.
And we haven't really seen the linebacking group play together for that long. Jack Campbell, Anzalone, and Derek
Anzalone
Barnes
hadn't
back.
been there. Yeah, and Barnes is just getting back on the
So, I mean, that I'm looking forward to, because Jack Campbell had such a great second year last year, just kind of holding things down for that defense. Had so many great plays, was all over the field. But, the pass rush is just lingering. It lingers.
Yeah, lingering. Was Zadarius Smith still out there?
He's still out there.
Come on, Z.
I feel like he might just end up on the roster at some point, right? On a 1 year sort of.
it's weird that it hasn't happened yet, right?
Maybe waiting until the beginning of.
He doesn't want to go to OTAs.
No. I don't need the classwork yet. Just tell me to go after
I'll
the
sign in the
quarterback.
preseason. That's fine.
He could. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to
for
see
sure,
that happen.
for sure.
Wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah.
Still much more to come on DSP. We'll be discussing two teams playing extremely well right now. Let's make it three teams if you include the Pistons in the playoffs last year. Which team has the best chance at this moment in time to win a championship? We will discuss coming up. So many playoff teams in one city. The Lions,
Who would have thought?
The Lions, the number one seed last year in the NFL. The Tigers won a wild card series and then went down to the wire against Cleveland. And then you have the Pistons making a playoff appearance for the first time in a long time. Red Wings take out March, and we have a different conversation.
Maybe by Yzerman's 15th year, they'll be in the playoffs.
Good point.
Yeah,
Good
it takes
point.
15 years to build a franchise.
Good point. Well, we're getting close to a decade of not making the postseason. So I think I know my answer of who is not going to be the answer for this coming segment. But with so many teams playing well right now, which team do you think at this point in time has the best chance to win a championship?
I'll take the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, you will.
Because they are just, I think they have a more complete veteran sort of mold and culture on the team and they've had it for a little longer than the Tigers. The Tigers are still kind of figuring out like how good they are. I think the Lions kind of know how good they are. And so they're, the way they approach everything, games, practice, all that stuff is built on that. And so I think they are in a better position, but I will say they had their chances, man. They had their chances. And so you look at the last 2 seasons for the Lions and they couldn't get it done. It makes me feel a little bit like maybe it's the Tigers because they don't have that baggage. They have like all that hope in front of them. And not that the Lions are, don't get me wrong. I picked the Lions, don't forget.
Yeah.
But the Tigers have more like, we don't know what's possible in front of them. So, but if I had to pick, I'd take the Lions.
I typically go into these kinds of debates just like which team is the safest bet to get into the playoffs, because once you're in the playoffs in both of these sports, I really feel like any team in the playoffs can win. So as I look at the teams around the Tigers and the Lions, I think the NFC North division is sort of burgeoning with all these good teams, whereas I see the Tigers rising as sort of the cream of the crop in the AL Central. So I'm going to go with the Tigers just because I do think there's a good chance that they're sort of a playoff regular over the next couple of years. And the way that they're built is very, very dangerous in a short series in the postseason, because you can pretty much rip off a win in game 1 with Tarek Skubal, right?
Yep.
And then if you're in a 3-game series, you're probably getting him back for game 5. So just that security and the way that the entire team is built, I really feel like, and I'm just worried about that offensive line, the Lions' offensive line.
I agree with you. I think that the Lions have more questions than the Tigers at this very point in time.
Yeah.
That's my one. But I agree with you. And I agree with you to an extent, Ken.
Well, it is June.
I'm in the middle. It is June. That's what I'm saying. That's why I said at this point in time, it is June. Still a lot of things for both or all of these franchises to answer. But we are all out of time on DSP. For Derek, for Ken, I'm Hobie. We will see y'all next time.